Okay, I think we are live. Welcome, everyone. We're all kind of hosting today. This is the Resonance Academy faculty here. I'm one of your hosts, Jamie Janover, and we've got our friend William Brown. Oh, whoops! You're hearing me. You're hearing the live stream on YouTube happening. That was me introducing us a second ago live on YouTube. So tell your folks, check out Resonance Science Foundation on YouTube. We have our
topic today is time loops and how you can hear yourself more months later.
As says Adam Apollo. I'll let you introduce yourself, co-host Adam Apollo.
Oh, thanks, Jamie. I wasn't trying to take over your hosting.
Oh, it's all good.
Great to see you guys. It's such a pleasure to be here with you as always. Welcome wherever you're coming in from. We're all surfing the technosphere today and all of the major and minor technical difficulties that come along with it. So join us for the fun at another Resonance Academy session here. Please bring your best questions for us. We're ready to dive in and take a bite out of it. So thank you guys for coming and joining us again today.
And we have Inez. Inez, where are you joining us from today?
This is Mexico City.
Nice.
Yeah. How about my poster back there? Have you seen it?
No, that's awesome. What is it?
Beautiful. Yeah.
Is that holographic mass solution or something? Or
yeah, that's it. Now I'll have to update it because now it's model 7 and we have the Electron solution and all that. So I'll have to go and do another one, a new one.
Right on. Yeah, Inez is mentioning module 7, which is a new module in the free Unified Science course that we offer. Anybody who's on YouTube hearing this, if you want to go to resonancescience.org, you can check out a free course that's very comprehensive and covers Nassim Haramein's 30 years of research into the nature of reality and space-time and physics. And Inez put together an incredible summary of the last 5 years worth of papers, some of which were co-written by our other co-host, William Brown, who's at Taurus Tech in Southern California right now. What's up, William?
What's up, Jamie? Thank you for bringing us all in here. And thank you, everybody, for joining us for another, hopefully, awesome discussion about some unified physics and unified science and the connected universe. Yeah, and that actually, it looks like there may even be a question regarding module 7.2, which was related to the Unified Space Memory Network. That was the paper published by me, Nassim, and Dr. Amir Baker. So on that paper, we had a biologist, a physicist, and an astrophysicist. And so we were able to tackle some pretty big questions. And so in the most humble way, we described the paper from cosmogenesis to consciousness. So the start of the universe to consciousness and everything in between, we explained it. Well, you know, it was starting the framework for a unified model to begin to understand the totality, the wholeness of the holofractal system of the universe. And so that's why it had the moniker, the Unified Space Memory Network. And now we've been able to extend and elaborate and go into detail using this framework that is the basis for building a coherent, unified description that doesn't see different fields of science. It doesn't see biology is one field, chemistry is another, physics is yet another. It's a unified description across all of those domains. And so when you have a unified description of physics, chemistry, and biology, you have a really good opportunity to have a better understanding of things like the origin of life, biogenesis, the abiotic to biotic transition, which I think is one of the most fascinating big questions in science. And that's actually one of the main topics in Big Questions Level 2 course that's coming out soon.
Awesome.
That's exciting to hear. Big questions level 2, huh?
Yeah.
All right. The bigger questions.
Because
Awesome.
I mean, describing cosmogenesis, the start of the universe, does kind of seem a little bit easier. I mean, it's still a big question, but it does seem a little bit easier than that, the start of life question. I mean, where did life, how did it emerge? It's a pretty big question, a bigger question, I think. Yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
Awesome.
I just want to remind our folks that are watching on YouTube, some people are asking how they can ask questions. The way questions get answered are by our contributing members, and it's pretty easy to do. You can go to resonantscience.org. It's only $5 a month to be a member, and there's a whole long list of cool things that you get with that. One of the things is to ask direct questions on the faculty Q&As and the live with Nassims. So here on Zoom, for the folks that are asking questions, ask your questions in the Q&A. The chat is more for like connecting and just commenting and stuff like that. And remember, when you're commenting in the chat, to change the little blue button to all panelists and attendees. Otherwise, you might end up just messaging us panelists. And with that being said, I don't know, Inez, do you have any questions you want to start in with, or do you want to just say anything intro style about what's going on in resonance science land and what you're working on?
Yeah, in fact, I think I will do that and address as well 2 questions that are related to what
Awesome.
I'm about to say. So yeah, so someone asking for Module 8. Module 8 is on its way. It's not finished. It's advanced, but it's still a long way to finish it. And as well, the paper, it's about to be published, but we're having some delays on that as well, because it's so many. Nassim has said it so many times. The amount of information that's coming through, the amount of connections, it's like suddenly understanding all Wikipedia, all the Wikipedia sites in just one course. It's like complete structured. So because of that, and each time we have a new feature coming up, we find the connection to many other things. So that's raising a lot of it, so it increases the amount of information that Module 8 is going to have. So it's on its way, but it's growing really fast. So we have to always keep up with all these new advances. What's interesting here at this moment is that we're doing it live. Let's say, like, we're understanding the model as we go. So that's amazing, because for me it's been such I have been learning so much from this that it's just amazing. As researchers, we usually do that. We learn as we do research, because that's the way to go. But at this moment, it's like having a huge download, and it's at the same time very simple, because when you see what's the key connection, the key point connecting everything, it's so simple, and so it really ensembles the puzzle completely. But then you have this huge download of wow, of links coming out everywhere, like, oh, so this is connected to that and that. So it's complete madness. It's so strong. So very exciting, and we're hoping that it will come soon. But that's the thing, we have so many things coming up from one day to the other that it's like, whoa. No, it's unbelievable. So having said that, my Model 8 will come hopefully soon. I hope. I'm working on it. Then, addressing the question from Jeff Colebrook here at the question and answer. I don't know if you wanna put him on the screen, Jamie. So maybe, yeah.
I can go find him.
Okay. So he's asking about. So there's a section in Module 7, which is called the simulation hypothesis, which is something very, like many people among myself have been really concerned. I know we have all heard about this simulation hypothesis. It was really disseminated by, let's say, technological authorities like Elon Musk and all these people. Hi, Jeff. Hi. So So that if you want to do, go ahead and do the question directly, it will be, it works as well. But your mic is on, so you would have to. Yeah, okay.
Oh, directly my question? Yes. Well, of course, I could read it, but it basically, that section was dealing with something that's very interesting, the controversy or the two theories or two models between simulation and the unified field memory. So it's just, I just like to come up with these questions because I love your answers. And it's interesting because even related to the other question, when I was looking at the documentary on, on Gaia, they were sort of going with the Tom Campbell, who's a big proponent of simulation, and he wrote a book this thick to promote his concept of the simulation theory. And so many people are doing that. And I just wanted to see what exactly is the differences between the two. And is there really that much difference between the two models?
Yeah. Well, that's a very techy question. And I had done my question myself. I had the same concern because, of course, when you see these very prominent authorities on the matter saying with such so convinced that we live in a simulation, that the probabilities are extremely high, then of course that's not so, I don't know how everyone will take it. Like for me, it was kind of, wow, that's not so nice to hear. Not so nice to hear. It could be, but then that's when the holographic solutions came, in my case, came for my rescue, I would say. Because at the time, I had been working with, before entering RSF and working with Nassim, I had been working on neural networks and artificial intelligence for a very short period of time. And so I learned about neural networks, artificial neural networks, and I saw their potential. I saw their extreme large potential because they are capable of expressing something that the normal physics can't, which is expressing emergent properties. The emergent properties are properties that are not found in any of the individuals, but that you find them as a collective. When the collective appears, then these emergent properties come. Like many people have the feeling that consciousness is an emergent property and things like that. So that was the first concern. So in that case, the thing is the following. The simulation hypothesis is based on the fact that we supposedly, in fact, I think I mentioned that in the model. There's some work from Qin. It's a Chinese researcher who finds how to solve many of the problems that artificial intelligence addresses through neural networks, but he does it through a very different algorithm, which didn't require that much training. Because the problem with the neural networks is you have to feed them the information at first. You have to give them a lot of information to train the network so they can get very efficient at their prediction. So it's not that complicated, and they have reached such developed states that neural networks has been even replacing our scientific models, and that's what's happening. You will see that because we have so many gaps in physics, like for instance the gap between the unification of scales, it was just a matter of time for someone to propose the unification through neural networks, and that's what's happening. So that's what Van Schraen was doing. So he was saying, okay, I'm training this network. I'll give them some properties, and I will see. And it was capable of reproducing quantum effects and macroscopic effects as well. Through there's a phase transition in the neural network. And so for him, it was really very clear to see that probably that's the same thing the universe is doing, and that's also what Nassim's model says. It is, in fact, a neural network, but there's a big difference between one and the other one. If you have the neural network as done by artificial intelligence, you won't understand anything at all. Because, you see the neural network, once you have established it, it learns on its own. It creates the information is the net itself. It's the net itself. So when you start programming the neural network, and you have, of course, to feed it information, and it will learn, but it needs to be fed the information beforehand. So that's a very first, let's say, difference. So you have to feed them artificially some information in order to the neural network to learn. Meanwhile, in the holographic solution, it's not the case at all. It's the same dynamics. It's the dynamics of the information transfer in space, which creates this feed-forward mechanism that accounts for that, let's say, learning process. So it is a living organism in this sense. So that's one difference. Then the other difference was that the simulation hypothesis was, let's say, based on the fact that there's also this idea that we are a projection from another dimension. So we are projected like holograms. This is another misunderstanding of the holographic principle, because of course, if we take the holographic principle, not Nassim's, but the mainstream approach, we have that we cannot access the volume of the black hole. So it's supposing that all the information is code on the surface of the black hole. And so then you could say, okay, so then I could have some kind of reality where I could have a projection just like in the movie theater, like in a screen. And so everything could be really just a projection, which is something you can code, and you can, everything could be artificial as well in that simulation. And so here the difference is in regards to that perspective is that in the holographic solution, you can account for both the information in the volume and in the surface. So in fact, you understand why there's this this rate of information exchange between the surface and the volume. And that's crucial, because that's telling you how much of the information can be really exchanged with the surroundings. And this is also telling us that the evolution of the system not only is completely, it is connected, everything is connected, and you cannot, let's say, anticipate the outcome. You cannot, precisely because of that, because everything is connected, so you cannot program it at first. It is the own choice of the system to evolve with taking into consideration all the other aspects and interactions that are happening in the universe. Because as you see, the universe, and we will see that with the next model and the paper that's coming out, everything is connected through this relationship that across scales, which is the holographic solution. Now we will have a holographic solution that's not only encompassing, let's say, protons and universe, it's also taking into account every step in between, such that we will have a scaling law that goes from the Planck and below up to the universe and beyond. So this is telling us, roughly speaking, that everything is connected. And in my own reality and experience, all scales are also concerned as well. So imagine the capacity that this system has to learn, to grow, to develop, to create life. And this is something that it's got life on its own. So the main difference would be between one and the other one, that even if this was initially created as a simulation, it's got life on its own. It's a living thing, because it's developing a huge amount of information, a huge amount of interactions that cannot be accounted by any let's say programming beforehand. And so then the question would be, okay, so then it could be it could have started as a simulation and then it got live on its own. Well, that's another issue. I believe that if that was, in my case, the fact that the universe is a living organism and that it is alive and that we are part of that living organism, for me, just solves the issue for me. I don't know if for everyone else that would be the case, but in case for me, that would be something that it's that was a relief, let's say. And so when Vacheron says that we live in a neural network, that's That's what the holographic solution says. But this network is got a mechanism, it's got a process that you can follow. It's not just some neural network programming that's behind, that it's just doing whatever the coder is deciding, In this sense, we are the coders, let's say it that way. So we are coding and we are creating and we are co-creating and we are participating in this co-participative reality. And that's what life is. If you're gonna ask me what is life, and I would say it's a system that learns, that grows, that evolves, and that participates in its own creation and its own reality. So I wouldn't see that much of the difference at that point. And yeah, so I would say that Vacheron is correct in his statement. The universe is a neural network, but it's a very different neural network from the one he proposes. So yeah, that would be. That
was awesome, Inez.
Yeah.
Can I jump on that just for a second? Because I want to play with a couple of the just simple points on this to kind of maybe tie together what you said, because your whole disposition was brilliant. So the first piece that really comes to mind around this is the idea of the definition of a simulation, right? The idea of a simulation is that there's something false or fake, that you're going to be tricked, right? Like, this is the definition of simulation. Like, literally, it's, an imitation, a sham. So the first premise off the bat that the whole universe is somehow fake or is an illusion, right, is a really fascinating one, because that goes back thousands and thousands of years through different belief systems to the idea that the universe is Maya, right? And from the spiritual perspective, like, for example, in the Vedas, in the perspective of Maya, Maya is part of the process of the soul's evolving experience. And there is a context for the transcendence of illusion, so to speak, which is the realization of the true self, which is infinite, encompassing, creating the illusion, right? And so it's interesting, because the deeper you get into it, the more you realize that Maya is not a sham or an illusion at all. It's actually the output of consciousness exploring itself. And I think that's a pretty useful thread to pull back to this whole simulation hypothesis idea, because frankly, it's like you can either connect to the experience of life and reality and feel like you're a part of it and in it, or you can feel like you're against it and it's outside of you and it's against you and you're trying to overcome some simulation created by some powerful external coder or being, which is ultimately extraordinarily disempowering, right? And I love your description of the neural network as like, it's a living thing. We are living and evolving and being within this construct. And that's really critical and essential to understanding the whole thing, because even when you realize that the I Ching, patterning found, thousands of years ago, actually unknown when it was found, but sort of emerged in writings as a system for understanding patterns in yin and yang that describe different scenarios in space-time. In other words, different kinds of experiential patterning and harmonics. And then you realize that binary code was inspired by the I Ching, and it actually functions literally as the I Ching, as a yang bit and a yin bit, as ones and zeros. And you realize that everything we've created in computers is really just a duplication of this sort of natural harmonic patterning that's occurring in our human experience throughout space. You might get confused even further to saying, oh, well, this must be a simulation. Or even if you realize that the I Ching and the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching also match the 64 codons in the DNA. Oh my God, does that mean it's all programmed the same way? But when you realize that there's a unified geometric harmonic patterning to the emergence of life, as William was saying, to the emergence of space-time, to the emanation of experience and existence, then this doesn't seem odd at all, because you began to realize that the pattern of the vortices inside the proton that form the vector pentagonal wormholes that go into the core of the singularity of the proton, of course, it's going to be the exact same geometry as DNA. And of course, that's going to be the same patterning that sets the field for how information is stored throughout the universe. And of course, that's going to affect the patterns and cycles of our experience, as above, so below, micro and macro. The whole thing is beautifully interconnected. So that's what I wanted to share on that. And Jeff, I was actually going to answer your next question, so you can hang out for a second. I was going to speak a little bit to the invisible made visible, demonstrated by seeing and reading totally blindfolded, that kids seeing through blindfolds to reading stuff. And this is in this documentary on Gaia you're talking about, the series Mind Over Matter. It's also in a couple other films and movies out there, where there's lots and lots of documented cases of this, including the film Superhuman on Amazon Prime, I think, and they deal with it from the standpoint of remote viewing skills. It's absolutely clear that the seat of consciousness is not fixed in the brain or necessarily even in the body at all, that we inhabit this body, but we're able to move different vehicles of our consciousness outside of the body to perceive things. And there's a lot of foundation for that in unified physics, because it says, you know, you're basically an amalgamation of protons that are all in this entangled coherent field. And that's just your body, right? But the protons are capable of entanglement and information transmission with each other instantaneously throughout the body and to literally anything else around us, including a whole chunks of the universe, if we wish, right? Because there's inherently this quantum field that are immersed in, that is connecting the dots, so to speak, of all the points, right? And so we're immersed in this interconnected, communicating, computational neural network. And what is perception? What is us? Like, where is it that we perceive from? Well, some of our physical vehicles allow us to take in light or taste certain things or hear certain sounds, process those in waveforms that can elicit chemical responses in the body. This is all the biological side of things, right? And then we also notice that consciousness, dreams, consciousness can elicit memories. Consciousness can access memories, has been proven in many cases, from perhaps different entire proton amalgamations, vehicles that we were maybe incarnated into, as there's more and more and more proof of that coming out from kids telling stories about other lifetimes. And of course, the Tibetans and, Nepalese would have been like, oh yeah, we've been doing that forever. Like the Dalai Lama, we just show him his toys from their last life, right? So we know that there's these faculties, and the faculties of consciousness can operate within and move out this neural network to access information and store and retain that information back within the physiological vehicle of the body. So it's kind of like, as Nassim says, we're like an antenna tuning to different frequencies, and we can move in and out of that central hard drive system that's our body, and we can travel through the internet of the neural network with our minds and see whatever it is that we choose to see and perceive, and bring that back to the hard drive of the body for kind of hard storage and memory within the cells and the DNA and et cetera.
Can I add just a little thing?
Of course.
Because it's related as well with the question you had done before about the simulation hypothesis, Jeff. Because you see, basically the reason why people believe it's a simulation is because what Adam just said about these bits of information, 0 or 1. The fact that we have that we can count in integers, and that the building block of the holographic solution is in fact a unit of PSU, which is an integer. Let's say we have 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units, and we start counting like that. The fact that you can discretize the space, or the space we're working on, would be an indicative of a simulation of a program. So
that's bits, right? Like bits or bytes within a program. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the bytes, and so that would be so. And here my reflection on that matter was the fact that if we don't have units, if we don't have let's say integer, how can we exchange anything? I mean, I need to exchange information with you. It's got to be at some point have a limit to it. There's got to be a boundary condition for it. If I give you an apple, it's 1 apple. And of course, we know that the apple inside is infinite. I mean, you know that you could go inside, down, up to the subplank and below. But it's a confined system from which, from the outside, I can tell you I'm giving you an apple, 1 apple. So we can exchange information because of the integers. So this is something that is pretty misleading, I believe, in the other mainstream approach, where they say that because we have integers and because the space can be discretized in units, then this is a simulation and this is a programmed reality. And the fact is that the integer notion it's deeper than that, because how can I exchange anything with you? And how can I, how can we have this feed-forward mechanism if there's no limit to the amount I am exchanging to you? So we need boundary conditions, and so that the fact that we have boundary conditions is thanks to the fact that we have integers, that we have units, and the fact that we have units, it's really important, because now we will see, because of the recent SI, the International Systems of Units was very recently homogenized up to with respect to the Planck scale, with respect to the Planck constant, right? So now every feature, mass, time, and distance can be expressed in terms of the Planck constant, and that's really important and very important in the context of the unified theory. Because as you see, this Planck constant is a quantum of action, a quantum of angular momentum. So we will see how why everything is connected to that fact, and why the units are basically this. So the fact that everything has been unified with respect to the Planck spherical units, and with respect to the Planck constant is a proof that the Planck is a real unit of space, that the Planck, the PSU, is a real unit of space. So I just found incredible that in this marvelous universe we live in, where we can have these experiences, and the consciousness can have this experience and all that, the most important notion of all of it is the fact that we can count, that we can exchange information, because we have up to some point we're able to have some boundary condition that allow us to count. The image of the apple for me is really very, very mind-blowing, because the apple, I can give you an apple. I see the apple from the outside and it is a confined system, one apple, but from the inside it is infinite. So that's just so crazy. Yeah, so that was my comment. Yeah.
No wonder people are obsessed with the word quantum. They don't even really realize what it means, but it just means we can count. Yes, there's a quantity. It's so cool. It's great for information exchange.
And that you can track that counting up to the Planck scale. That's what it's. That's all. What's quantum physics is that you can track that count up to the Planck scale. That's it. So that the counts start at the Planck scale, and even more below that as well. But for our universe, the pertinent scale would be that our count starts from the Planck scale. So it's counting like Planck's here, Planck's there, they're coming here, they're coming there, you know, so that's our unit of exchange, like our coin of exchange. So that's really nice.
It makes it challenging to count things because a single proton is really a 1 with 60 zeros after it. It's not 1 at all, right? Just even 1 proton is this massive quantity. And then you need few protons to make different kinds of atoms, depending what element you're dealing with. And then you need a lot of those to make molecules, and you need a lot of those to make your apple. So like 1 apple is how many Planck in an apple? It's like a stupid amount of Planck spherical units in an apple. So yeah, it's you're rounding off no matter what, like 1 what, like even the Planck, you're like, wait, are there smaller things inside there? And Nassim's new paper is saying, yeah, there's probably subplonks. And the subplonks are so small that the Planck is halfway in size between the subplonk and the universe. So now how many subplonks are there in an apple? A quantum wormhole that's the size of a Planck can have all kinds of subplonks going through it, right? And there's 10 to the 40 quantum wormholes coming off of a single proton. So it's so much more complex. And that information travels, what is it, 10 to the 16 times the speed of light or something? What is that, Inez, this, or William, the speed of the subplonk information traveling across the universe in like a nanosecond? So speed of light is slow. 1 isn't really 1, it's infinitely embedded into 1. Everything is really 1 and everything is really infinitely divisible. So we're just swimming around being like, I think I can figure out what's going on around here. Where am I? Who am I? How did I get here? How did life start? How did the universe start? We're all like, I don't know, but the mainstream physicists are like, yes, we know, we just have to find this stuff that's missing because our equation is missing 95% of the universe. And somebody like Nassim is just going like, oh my God, you guys, maybe you should go back and look at some of the equations that are making you think that you're missing all this mass. And that's what he did. And he was like, oh, you guys forgot to account for the energy in space itself. Those Plancks have energy in there. And so that's where this is all unraveling, and it's starting to, it makes so much more sense. Thanks, Nassim and William and Inez and everybody else. Boy, like, I just can't wait for everybody to become less confused, because looking for something that is missing for decades and spending billions of dollars and finding no evidence for it, yet it represents 95% of the entire universe, you would think at some point somebody goes, maybe we shouldn't build a bigger collider and keep smashing things together, because we'll probably just get smaller and smaller things. We're just going in circles in our investigation, and we're trying to break out of that. And I feel like we are slowly but surely breaking out of it. I mean, 1 lifetime is kind of fast in the world of physics, considering, you know, the pace at which we've been discovering stuff since we were, you know, just trying to figure out how to make fire and stuff like that. Yeah, it's complicated.
In fact, I was thinking that it's unbelievable. In 2,000 years, where we have, 2,000 years is nothing. It's nothing. And we have reached this stage where we have internet, we have, I don't know, cars, television. It's just nothing to 2,000 years. So it's like so freaking crazy. And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, give a civilization like us like a couple more 1,000 years and think about what kind of civilizations might be out there riding that wave. Well, let's get William in this.
Thanks,
action.
Jeff.
What's up, buddy?
Well, yeah, I was wondering, especially with the what William would think about the blind people seeing. But, you know, it all, when I looked at that, it all went back to the same thing that got me hooked years ago with the Event Horizon, when Nassim was talking about dimensions. I mean, you know, 2-dimension simulation, they're using a 2-dimensional projection, and there's no such thing as 2 dimensions. So my question, of course, was, I know the solution for unified physics came by getting, you know, using the Planck spherical unit. And I'm just curious how close the 2 theories or models really come if they use a 3-dimensional Planck. And of course, in that in the quote in the course that was set that I put in the thing was that, you know, at a level, it's hard to even see the difference. But it comes down to the divine living presence that is everywhere present. And that's like we were all talking about. We experience the life that flows through everything. So yeah, but I was interested to see if any biology came out of the blind that William has on the people being able to see totally blindfolded and read books. It's really quite amazing. And of course they're using children because they're not pre-programmed as much as us adults.
Yeah, and it really just comes down to the fact that your consciousness is delocalized. You know, it's not contained necessarily just inside your skull. You know, it's not localized to this one space-time coordinate. Consciousness actually occupies all space-time coordinates. So you know the information exchange that is occurring constitutively across all space-time coordinates via the entanglement nexus, that is a part of what consciousness is, that information exchange across all these different entangled space-time coordinates. So you know, the information that you have access to is 100% not limited to your conventional physical senses. And you know, what's more is that we have a erroneous assumption that we are limited to 5 physical senses. And it's scientifically shown that that's erroneous because there are actually quite a rich diversity of different sensory inputs that we have available, even via the biological system, the physical system. You know, the proprioceptive sense, magnetoreception. You know, we have magnetite particles in our brain. And, you know, magnetoreception is really evident in a lot of other organisms, birds, sharks, and, you know, they just so happen to be using a quantum mechanical mechanism for that magnetoreception that involves entangled particle pairs being produced in the eye. We also have a electromagnetic sense. And, you know, in some individuals, this electromagnetic sense can be really tangible, such that, you know, in an area with a high amount of artificially produced electromagnetic pollution, they can even feel at unease. And so, you know, people seeing without their eyes, it's a hard thing to accept. And, you know, I certainly wouldn't expect anybody to accept it. Myself, I do, because I've seen it. I did a seminar with VibraVision. And these guys are real Jedis. It was the coolest thing I've ever seen. I mean, one of the guys, so they taught us the technique how to sense electromagnetic fields. It's called Garuda. And it's really tangible. And if you get one of the arc crystals after doing this technique, you can feel the coherent electromagnetic field off of it really tangibly. But they had one of their guys put on a blindfold. And I tested these blindfolds out. I put it on because I'm like, oh, he can see through it or something. You can't see anything. And across the room, he was reading the words on the back of people's shirts. Then they had these different colored balls, yellow, red, green, blue. And they throw them at him. He's got a blindfold on. He's got his Jedi lightsaber. It's plastic. They throw it at him. And he would say what color the ball is and then hit it. You know, and so, I mean, so somebody would have to explain to me how this individual was able to do that, because, you know, I watched the entire setup. I was there for the whole thing. I tried on the blindfold. You can't see a thing with it on. You know, so it's real. And I'm sure that there's countless other anecdotes to that. But, you know, it's just, there's a science to it, and you can actually contact Vibravision. They have a website. You could see it for yourself if you'd like.
I know magicians, and now I feel like we understand a little bit about how magicians always are doing these one thing where on Og, they put blindfolds on, and they're able to drive cars and stuff, but they're using the same principle.
Quite possible.
Some of them, certainly. Some of them it's a trick, but there's absolutely a lot of those skills to cultivate, and it's not new. There's records of this going back, as I've mentioned other times, literally thousands of years. And there's cultures that, based a lot of their initiations on developing these higher perceptual abilities, and extending the capacities of our consciousness vehicle. And we're just now finally coming around to our science, realizing that, wow, all that was actually really important stuff. And we need to get back to that because it helps define how our perception affects experiments and how we, influence quantum gravitational fields through our presence and et cetera. There's a lot of really, really amazing technology to come as we anchor and reintegrate the ancient wisdom with our newfangled quantum gravity knowledge, man. All that Planck scale stuff. Well, did you have another question you wanted to address to William? Thank you, Jeff, so much. Always a pleasure to
you
see
guys,
buddy.
I just have so much fun coming up with questions because I love listening to you so much. You're my heroes, all of you, and I love you dearly. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Bless you all.
Good to see
Thanks
you.
for being our special guest today. Special guest, Jeff Colebrook, everybody. Give him a hand from your couch. Thank you.
So there is a question, but I think Jamie also wanted to say a few words on it. So maybe if Jamie takes it, if I just have the opportunity to opine on it a little bit at the end, the question on what are emotions like? I have some comments on from a scientific perspective. What is an emotion? From a physics kind of perspective, but I think it was let me see,
Dean
Brunwell.
Dean Brunwell.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's two questions up. I've seen the second one. Yeah, I'll read it for you, Jamie, so that you can take it. So emotions are energy in motion. I'm an energy worker. I help people release negative or challenging emotions / behaviors. Where does this energy go?
That's a deep question because first you're saying that emotions are energy. And then you're saying that when you release or get rid of quote unquote negative energy, where does that energy go? So it's talking like mechanics basically, because it's stuff. Energy is a physical thing. It's a vibration. So I think it's good to point us back to something that Nassim likes to say about this. He likes to say that if you are controlling your emotional state, that is kind of a tuning mechanism for your consciousness. That you can change the way you perceive things, the way you do things, the way you feel by literally tuning yourself and tuning your emotions. And the way you do that is through your heart. So it's esoteric question, but it's also physics question. And that's where it's fascinating. And folks like Nassim dare to use the C word, being consciousness. In physics, the C word is actually consciousness. And he's been talking about consciousness for a long time in physics. And it's kind of a taboo subject because it's so esoteric. The next thing, physicists are worried about is, you're going to get spiritual. You might even get religious. You might start talking about God and abstract paranormal things. And, this is all super taboo, but it's all real. It's all happening. We know, you can tell right now because you're having emotions right now. Emotions are real things and we're physically here and we're made of protons. And so I think emotions are basically like a tuning system, kind of like in music. What note are you tuning your scale to? And are your notes going to be in harmony with each other, or is your tuning system in such a way that when these two frequencies happen at the same time, there's like interference patterns and you get beats and weird wobbles and everything feels discordant and off? And if you can tune yourself and your emotions and your frequency, your literal resonance of your emotional state, your consciousness, your body, which are all connected, obviously it's all one thing, then you can actually make harmony within yourself and have, resonance. That's why it's Resonance Science Foundation. Resonance is like a sympathetic vibration, a fundamental tone happens. Like I play this instrument right here, the hammer dulcimer, and all those notes are ringing at the same time. No matter what note you hit, all the notes are ringing. It's like a piano with the pedal down. So it's good to get yourself in tune. If you're not in tune, then yeah, you can hit a note on that thing. If it's totally out of tune, all the other notes might not resonate very much because they're not sympathetically in resonance with that fundamental frequency. And so I think emotions are an analogy of that. And it's kind of abstract, right? We're having to talk in metaphors, but it's also literal. And an energy worker like yourself knows this all intuitively. It's just, how do you put physics terminology to stuff that you can talk about in a therapy session or with a friend, or just like, I don't know how I feel about this. You could say all you want in any poetic, artistic kind of way you want. And it's another thing to do the quantumness and the quantifying of, oh, these are frequencies, these are vibrations. Maybe we can calculate something. Maybe we can work this out. And so I am fascinated by this because that's where quantum physics actually has implications for psychotherapy. And you wouldn't instantly think that those things are connected, but man, you start looking at the idea of space memory and that everything that you've ever experienced happened in coordinates in space and time. And if you can appropriately go back in space and time to when that happened, and of course you have to do that in a spiral because no, we're not going in a circle around the sun, then, oh, I see, I have a different perspective on all this. And now I feel different. And now because I feel different, I'm going to do different things. I'm going to change the future because I'm changing the way I feel about the past. That's profound. And this has to do with space and time and emotion and consciousness and the universe. And again, like, where am I? What's happening? How did I get here? We're still trying to figure this out. But in my very short lifetime, relative to the history of trying to figure out how things work, we've figured out a lot of stuff. And I'm very encouraged that we're steering the ship in a much more fun direction that involves less strange and uninformed decisions that we see being made left and right all around us. And so it's up to us, the folks that are really trying to hone in on what's actually going on, to be like, hey, I think I might have figured something out, or check this out. There's this guy who might have figured something out. You might want to look into this because I can see that you could use a little bit of an adjustment in your direction or your feeling or the whatever you're doing. Because like we all come up against roadblocks or whatever. And if you can act like water and be like, oh, I see there's a rock. And you just flow right around that stuff instead of just hitting the wall and bruising your toe and you can't walk and you're limping all of a sudden. We got to learn how to go with the flow. And to learn how to go with the flow, you have to learn what the flow is. And so that is unified field theory. That's figuring out how the universe works. As soon as you figure that out, you can start to be like, oh, it would be way smoother if this happened and I didn't do that patterning that I've done in the past. So that's kind of my Reader's Digest version on what is an infinite topic.
And for some of the science of it, it actually makes for a really interesting theory on how emotions can actually be tied to quantum gravitational operations, space-time configurations, that is. So that, we begin to approach the topic of the so-called subjective state of emotion, of feeling, and actually begin to put a objective lens on it, such that these emotional states have real physical correlates, and therefore are amenable to a description via physics. Actually, one of the coolest descriptions I've come across is unified physics description using quantum gravity that comes from Sir Roger Penrose, one of the most preeminent physicists, and then Dr. Stuart Hameroff, one of the fathers of quantum biology. And so to begin to understand this, I might suggest approaching the idea a little bit differently, in that emotions aren't so much the energy in motion. That's actually the awareness. The awareness is the energy in motion. And the emotions are configuration states, geometries. And so a really easy way to think about this is like, if you have a nice coherent crystalline geometry, that's a good emotion, a positive emotion. The energy flows right through that, and we experience that as a positive emotion. Whereas if it's kind of like a crack in the crystal, a defect, in amorphous configuration, the energy is blocked there. Your awareness stops there, and you experience that as discomfort, a negative emotion. Kind of on a esoteric note, that energy, the emotion is love. And so even when it encounters that kind of amorphous, non-crystalline defect state, you're still dealing with the energy of love. It's just that it's going through that crack in the crystal. So we experience it, we feel it as unease, a negative emotion. But, when that defect is corrected via the energy of awareness, it goes back to an experience of a positive emotional state. And so, the energy isn't like going anywhere in that sense. It's just that it's moving through the configuration space much more coherently. And the way that this ties in with quantum gravity is that that when that configuration space is coherent, that equates to like cooperativity among the system. That equates to things coming together and working synergistically. And so, like, for instance, in biology, when that happens, you have life, you have vitality, growth, and good health, these kind of things. Whereas when you have the opposite of that, where you have a discordant configuration space, you have disconnectivity, uncooperativity. In biology, that is almost the definition of a disease state, a breakdown of the coherence and the energetic dynamics of the biological system. And so there's actually within orchestrated objective reduction model, that they take it to that biogenesis event, the origin of life. So how did these biochemical networks, these random molecules, start coming together and cooperating, forming cooperation networks, and forming synergistic, coherent, organized, ordered systems that became the first protocells and cells? It's tied to an emotional response that at the Planck scale, when the quantum gravitational geometry was such that you have coherence, that is entanglement, Einstein-Rosen bridge forming, that's cooperativity, that's things coming together, becoming more ordered, and that the physical correlate of that is an emotional response of, say, pleasure, a positive emotional response. So in a way, the primordial biochemical systems are they're having emotional responses when they're coming together in cooperative networks that are forming the first protocells and forming the first cellular life. And when the configuration space is decoherence, non-cooperativity, that is an emotional response of pain, displeasure. And so even in what we would think of as these non-living abiotic states, which is erroneous, the pleasure-pain response was driving coherence and cooperativity. So I find this just like an infinitely fascinating idea because it's very compatible with our model of the unified space memory network, where, again, in that coming together, that organizational synergy and ordering of physical systems in the universe, we tie that as an integral function of consciousness. Here, you're also bringing in emotions. So consciousness, emotions, all these things that we think of as subjective are actually objective. And they're integral components to the ordering dynamics of the universe.
Yeah, I'll jump on that for just 1 minute, and then I've actually got to jump off. I unfortunately always have like an hour window, and I've got a team waiting for me on another line already. So I'll just say that, like, I love your descriptions, William. And the one thing that I look at a little bit differently is that I look at emotion actually as the current. Like, if we're going to just say you're feeling an emotion, you're just experiencing a current, and that current has a certain vibratory field, and the openness or coherence of the circuitry of your system is going to enable that current to flow well or not, or hit resistance, right? And we may mentally observe an emotional pattern, and that's more like looking at the structure, as you were saying, of the emotion. It's where we're defining that emotion as being part of a certain process in time, like this happened and then that happened and I felt this way and I noticed it was in my stomach, or in my heart. Like that's like more of the mental application to me, the like structural analysis, but that the emotion itself is the current of energy. And would say to Dean that, in my experience, like some of the biggest emotional fields, when they move through the body, it is literally moving in and through the body, working out the resistance points so that the current can then flow. And what I usually experience is that when the current is fully flowing, I'm in an exchange with the earth. Just like, like a house has an electrical system, and the electrical system will short out unless there's a really strong ground line. Like, you have to have a ground. And so I think that, at least for me, like, where do the emotions go? Like, it seems like when you're in a coherent state of exchange within your body, you'll actually ground the current through the earth. And then you're like literally in an exchange of the electromagnetics with the planet. So that's my assessment on that. And he had another question about how a 2D area defines the information in a 3D space, because a bit in module 7 is the equatorial area of the PSU. And I'm sure you probably want to speak to Inez, but I just wanted to say simply as a starter that the equatorial area of any sphere is exactly 1/4 of the sphere. And the holographic theorem points to 1/4 of the surface area of any event horizon containing all the information within that event horizon. And there's a lot of other really interesting threads you can pull there, like the relationship to the tetrahedron, like one of the 4 points, relationships to a series of geometries where you recognize that within a certain sector of a geometry, there's a fractal correlation to the whole geometry. But I'll let you guys take that one if you want, Inez or whatever. But I just wanted to speak that very simple piece, that the equatorial area of a sphere is 1/4 of the total surface area of that sphere. And so we can look at any 2D circle, and this is a big part of my work, and you can recognize that any points on that 2-dimensional circle can represent an information field that's 3-dimensional. And that's a huge part of my unified harmonic matrix work in looking at how consciousness and 2D surfaces relate to 3D energetic spaces. Okay, guys, love you so much and look forward to seeing you again next time. Thanks for being part of this Q&A. Have fun. Aloha.
Bye, Will. Yeah. Okay, so I'll catch up on that question. Adam just gave the solution. You said it exactly how it is. So that would be the reason why this is defined like that. But it's interesting because we're talking about this sphere. So we're talking about, this is it is very curious because this is a quality that the geometry of the sphere has. This fact that this projection, let's say the equatorial area, is 1/4. So then, and that's also very interesting because if we see the solutions of the holographic model, it's always in terms of pi or 2 pi, which is, as you know, always relating to the sphere or to the circumference. So it's very interesting that everything's like already solved, or the unit that allows us to really encode everything is the sphere and the circle. And that's also very interesting because it's very related to the angular momentum, and in particular the quantum of angular momentum, which is the Planck. So coincidentally, we have the Planck and the sphere and the circumference very, very, very much at the basis, at the foundation of the holographic solution and model. So yeah, it's that's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. And that was Dean Strumwell's question. But then I saw the first question was about, I really like that, Cheryl Todd. She's asking if when we sleep, we go to the other side of the event horizon. I just loved that question. Yeah, but the thing is that we have many event horizons. So you know, we are always, every boundary condition is like an event horizon. So it depends if we are going like, and there's a beautiful analogy. This is a beautiful, let's say, correlation there's between the holographic solution. In fact, that's what it's telling you, the correlation between the inside and the outside, in such a way that if you go deeper into your body, let's say to the scale of a cell, then you're reaching on the other side to the scale of, I think it's the solar system, if I'm not mistaken, right? So this is why when you have these deep meditations and you access this very internal states, you go further away in the events horizons. So it would depend how, let's say, how deep you sleep, to which scale you will be arriving to. So not only in the sleep, in the meditations as well. So I have had dreams in which I think have gone into the event horizon of the universe, because that was the dream, what the dream was about. And so I can guess so that if that was the case in my dream, I got very deep into my inner states, let's say, and I would say that was so for the size, I would say the proton would be at the scale of the universe, because that's the holographic unit. If the proton is the holographic unit of the universe, I would say that if you go deep into the proton, you would go to the size of the universe. That would be my because that's what the solution is also hinting to. So it depends. So I was wondering if that was what event horizon is Cheryl referring to, because it also could be understood as the event horizon, like when you're alive or dead. So when you say you go to the other side of the event horizon, it's clear that when you're in this reality and you're experiencing this this reality, you can also define that as an event as being on this side of the event horizon. So when you transcend, let's say, and you go out of your body, like irreversibly, you go to the other side of the event horizon, which is exactly that. So I think that is also the case. And when you're when you sleep. That's why they call it the small death. Each time you go to sleep, this is like a small death you're having, because you're going to the other side of the event horizon. But I just wanted to make sure that we understood that event horizons, there are many. So when you go to the other side of the event horizon, you will stop at many scales, like planetary, let's say solar system, galactic, and then universal, and maybe even more than that. So yeah.
Yeah, you have to define event horizon if you're going to answer that question. And so you could say it metaphorically like awake and sleep or alive and dead, but the literal definition of an event horizon, as many of you know, is, a boundary condition around a singularity. It has to do with black holes. And if everything is a black hole, which is basically what Nassim's theory is saying, because protons are black holes, maybe there's only one event horizon, right? And like all black holes are entangled through the space memory network. And so there's maybe one, like the theory of there's only one electron and it's moving around really quickly. There's maybe one event horizon, or like you said, it's scalar event horizons. Like you go through scales, like the way to travel across the galaxy is to go into the center of a small black hole to get to a larger black hole, to get to a larger black hole, to come out in another spot, like a Einstein-Rosen bridge, a wormhole on a larger scale. So it's a very esoteric question. Again, it's like talking about emotions. We don't really even understand fully, I don't think, sleep. Like, what is going on? I mean, I'm sure William's got a wealth of knowledge regarding sleep, so maybe I'll hand it over to William. But I just wanted to point out that, like, you have to carefully define, what do you mean event horizon? Are you talking about literally black holes? Or are you talking about, like you were saying, alive and dead, or awake and asleep? But sleep is a serious mystery in itself, right? We know that if you don't sleep, it's not good. You can't survive. You can actually probably live longer without eating and drinking than you can without sleeping. Isn't that right, William?
I don't know about drinking.
Maybe not drinking.
Maybe not drinking, but it's pretty close. Yeah.
I mean, the record for not sleeping is only like a week or something, or 10 days or something.
And I'm sure that whoever that was like hallucinating.
Yeah, they were toast. Yeah, they didn't feel good.
I mean, sleep is a really huge conundrum, big question for the neurocomputational paradigm of consciousness, because, if your conscious states are being generated by electrochemical activity of the brain, of neurons and synapses, it's a little bit difficult to understand it when you shut those down during sleep. Not entirely, but to a good extent, you can have some of the most rich, vibrant conscious experiences of your life. And so in a way, it's kind of a wonderful demonstration of the way that the neurocomputational model is incorrect, in that our consciousness isn't just the electrochemical activity of the brain, because what you see with sleep is that as that is shutting down, not completely, but to a large extent, you can still find yourself in these fully immersive worlds that actually, during that time are so tangible and so real that usually you don't know you're dreaming. You don't, it actually usually takes practice to be able to say, I'm in a dream right now and have a lucid dream. And, that's a really interesting thing, especially in regards to the little death and crossing the event horizon, because in the Dzogchen practice of Bon Buddhism, they have the Tibetan yogas of sleep and dreaming. And what they'll do there is that actually, in order to prepare for the bardos, which is the transitionary state after death, because again, okay, the brain isn't sending electrical signals anymore. It doesn't mean your consciousness stops, because your consciousness is delocalized. It's not localized just in your brain or body. One of the ways that they prepare for the bardos is via dreams, via the sleep state. And the idea is that if you can cultivate awareness during the day, and one of the ways that you do this is kind of being aware that you're kind of in a dreamlike world, in that, a lot the information you're feeding into it is oftentimes the information you're getting fed back. And so cultivating that kind of awareness, then when you go to sleep, you won't get swept away in the karmas of your dreams. You'll have that cultivated awareness, and you'll be able to, in your dream, say, this is a dream. You'll have a lucid dream. And then, they do this as a lifelong practice so that when they cross that final event horizon, what we refer to as the death experience, going to the bardos, are not swept away in that transition like you would be in a dream, thinking that it's real. You maintain a level of awareness and lucidity. And apparently that has some benefits to it. That's about as far as my knowledge goes on why you would want to maintain lucidity and awareness during the transition. But so, I do think that it actually is very similar to the kind of event horizon that you cross in death. Obviously not as permanent, though.
Nice, William. Inez, do you have another question you wanted to go and answer?
Yeah, there's some. There's Nora Williams. Oh, no, that's a question for you guys. That's Jamie, Robert, or Marshall. So that would be Jamie. Yeah, Jamie. Yeah. So I don't know if you want to address that one. There are some. Okay, the one concerning so the Avogadro number. That's Bob asking. So we can write phi. I guess the phi he's referring to is the holographic solution, or is that the golden ratio? For me, it's not clear. What is he meaning by that?
Which question?
That's Bob. That's the third question or fourth. Oh, wait. Yeah. So there's Cheryl.
Okay,
there's Marshall, yeah. So that's Dean. We have addressed the three first ones. Yeah, that's Bob. Yeah, there is a relation with, of course, with Avogadro number, and we'll see it clearly in this next paper that's about to come. The Avogadro number is a very important number in chemistry. It's like the number. It is what it comes from the works from Dalton. These are the chemists who found that you could mix element and it would mix in certain proportions which are integers, or yeah. So that's one of the ways you can understand quantization, because when you have exchange of atoms in a reaction, in a chemical reaction, there's an exchange of atoms, and of not half an atom or 1/4 of an atom, you have exchange of atoms, and so that's also related to the fact that we can exchange units, and these units in this case are the atoms. And the Avogadro number tells you how these proportions are given in a chemical reaction. So it is a very important number. It's a very large number that it's derived in chemistry. And it is really related also to the holographic solution, which we will see, but I cannot say more than that because that's coming in the next paper. So I don't know if Bob was there. So I was curious just because of the fee he's mentioning there. The fee I'm talking about is the holographic solution. I'm not sure he's referring to the same phi. I'm not sure if he's referring to the golden ratio or to the holographic solution.
I just asked him to unmute if you want, if Bob, if you want to ask more detail the question, you could also go on video. If not, that's fine.
Got it. I don't know why my video is not working.
No worries.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Bob.
Hi, Bob.
Yeah. Hey, how you doing?
All's
Great.
well.
Yeah, it's not happening. Yeah, it's about, my question is about Nassim's fee, not about the golden ratio.
Okay, perfect.
And yeah, we think of Nassim's fee as a ratio because of the geometric derivation with PSUs, but we can connect it to the chemical scale by substituting it into the definition of the mole.
Yeah.
So then we get units for phi. We get units of atomic mass units per Planck mass.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's that was kind of my view of. So I'll just
Bob, you might be able to do video now.
try that now.
There you go.
Okay, there's light. So yeah, so then we can see that that phi is Nassim's phi is simply the reciprocal of Avogadro's number times some measure of mass.
Yeah.
And so suddenly we have Avogadro's number at the atomic scale, at the molecular scale, and at the PSU scale.
Yeah.
And it's starting to look like some kind of scaling constant. And so that was there's some follow on about Lorentz transform, but my question is there some big picture about Avogadro's number and a scaling constant?
Yeah, there is. The intuition is correct. In fact, Avogadro's number, you see the holographic solution is also this, the holographic ratio. In fact, it's thermodynamic property, and it's like a kinetical rate. If you see it as that, it's like the free energy of it could be related directly to the free energy, which is, you remember when you have a chemical reaction from reactants to products, and you have to go through the transition state. And you remember that the height of this barrier, this potential barrier to go from the reactants to products, is given by the Gibbs free energy. It's
vaguely, yes, in the distance.
Vaguely,
Yeah,
that's transition state theory, and so you will see that the holographic solution is it's one of its facets or angles of interpretation is that of a kinetical chemical reaction rate. Exactly, because
okay.
it's we call that in Spanish. I don't know how to translate that. So it's giving you a thermodynamic equilibrium state. That doesn't mean that it is static. It means that it's continuously exchanging information. It's like a kinetical reaction, but for information. Instead of reactants and products, it's like the exchange of bits in and out in the surface or in the surface. You know, so that's why it's the holographic ratio. It's placed over there. So it's like kind of the same. It's the same analogy. Exactly the same analogy with chemistry. And
so why does Avogadro's number have the value it does?
Well, you know, I might add that I think it's somewhat arbitrary on the number that it has, because, you know, it was just defined to be a really large number. And then you can just say, okay, this really large number, 10 to the 23, is a mole of a substance. So whenever you have this many particles of whatever element it is, you have a mole. And so, you know, it's just a way, it was just invented somewhat arbitrarily as a way to work with extremely large numbers that you'll experience when doing chemistry with elements, where, you know, you'll have a very large number of particles involved. And being a proportionality constant, it works the same for nitrogen as it does for cobalt. It's just that because of the lower molecular weight of nitrogen, when you have a mole of those, you're going to have a lot more than you do a mole of cobalt because it's heavier.
Yeah, but it also occurs at the PSU scale, which suggests that it's not arbitrary.
Well, and yeah. Well, that's something you've discovered.
It is not arbitrary. It is it's got to do with a proportionality constant, and which is something that it will be very clear. I cannot give that much more information now because it's in the paper, but it will be explained as why it is and how it's very close to what you're saying, but it will be a little bit.
The big picture that I'm asking about is close to. So can I roll on to ask a little bit about relativity?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So once you have a model of phi that depends on Avogadro's number and mass, you can then apply any relativistic mass to that model and roll that back into the geometric model and see relativistic mass as, or I should say the Lorentz transform as a change in size of a sphere of PSUs. So that the Lorentz transform is essentially radial, changing the surface area of the sphere of PSUs, and its mass changes with the as the PSUs, essentially you can think of it as PSUs evaporating from the surface of the proton. And I was wondering whether you'd looked this at all at the Lorentz transform being radial, because obviously the standard approach is to think of it in the direction of motion.
Yeah.
There's an argument you can make as to why that doesn't apply at the small scale, or at least, or I should say why it looks like the direction of motion at the large scale. But I was wondering whether you guys looked at that at all. Again, I'm looking for the big picture.
Yeah. Yes, of course. And in fact, that's how we solve the electron in the frame of the holographic model. Have you seen model 7? Have you read
I've read some of it, and it's brilliant. I'm really like it. I highly recommend everybody read that. I have not read the whole thing. Life has other things going on.
Yeah, I guess. But if you see in, I think section 7.1.5 tackles exactly your concern. In fact, this is how we understood why the electron is happening at the radius it's happening, because when we solve the electron, we use the Bohr hydrogen atom.
Yeah.
So and it happens that at the radius of the electron, you have a speed which is alpha c. So that was giving us a hint. Alpha c, it's meaning c over 137.9. So that was, and that is already known. So that was giving us a hint that there's this progression, this differential relationship of speeds, which is basically the Lorentz factor.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is that in fact Lorentz factor comes also from a geometrical approach, not only from a relationship of speeds. And that's what we will see now in model 8. Exactly why, because when we solved the electron, we knew there was this relationship. This was so, because you see, when we have the solution for the proton, it's 2 phi ml, 2 phi p, 2 phi sub p ml.
Yeah.
So that's basically okay. So then also we have this factor. So all the solutions will always have, for all particles, will always have the phi, the holographic ratio, and ml. But the factor in front of it will change. If it's a proton, it will be 2. If it's an electron, it will 1/2 alpha, and like that. So it was, so because of the solution of the electron, it was kind of hinting to us that this factor was in fact a Lorentz factor that we had. So, but speeds are not evident when you see that equation of the holographic ratio. You see it in terms of distances, of radius. You don't see it in terms of speeds. But what we found out in the paper, and that's what it's going to be connecting with the model 8 and the paper, is precisely why that's the case, and how is it that speed is already involved, and so these factors are in fact coming from the Lorentz factor, and so they will see why there's this relationship between speed and radius. And
when you say speed, you mean linear speed?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean linear speed. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So your intuition is quite anticipative. It's anticipating already what we're going to have.
Okay. Well, I look forward to reading more because it's been bugging me for a little while.
Yeah. Well, because you already see the connection. I mean, you're already seeing that that's a fundamental connection. So
I only see sort of about 2/3 of it, and that's why it bugs me, you know.
Yeah.
So, I think I can answer your question on Avogadro's number and why you have phi in there, and it's just that. So you know, when I said it's kind of somewhat arbitrarily chosen, it was just so that the mass in grams of 1 mole of substance is equal to the mass of that substance, 1 molecule of that substance in Daltons. Daltons is defined as 1/12 the mass of carbon.
Yes.
Well, so carbon has 12 protons.
Yes.
So 1/12 the mass of carbon means that 1 Dalton is the mass of 1 proton. So if you're setting your proportion of your element equal to Avogadro's number, you're setting it equal to Dalton's, which is defined in protons, and you know, phi is derived from the proportionality ratio of the proton. So there's almost like just a direct link.
Exactly. Yeah.
Going through it.
Right at the beginning, I made this jump about substituting the expression for a proton in terms of Nassim's phi into the definition of the mole. And the reason you can do that is there are 12 nucleons in a carbon-12 atom, right? So that's why that has physical meaning.
So you've done these calculations?
Yeah, it's easy. Yeah, it's trivial.
So do you get like a higher precision when you substitute in phi? To start off the calculations?
I don't know. I wouldn't know if it was higher precision.
Okay.
I wouldn't know what the right answer is.
That's something we'll have to check out here.
Yeah. But it works completely. You can scale for example, the simple scale is from a carbon-12 nucleon to a free proton. 1.007, is it? I'm not sure what the number is, something like that, 0.7 or 1.007, whatever the scaling factor is, and it works. You get the phi we talk about commonly which we commonly talk about a free proton.
Yeah, and it makes sense because in fact, it's just the scaling. It's just the scaling factor seen from a different perspective, but it's just the reason, it was chosen at the time. It was chosen intuitively because it was given the correct value in order to fit in all the proportions. So that's why it seems like it was kind of arbitrary. But in fact, because it was the one that it was working for it, it was because of that, because it was given the correct proportion.
So the reason about that thinking of in terms of Avogadro's number is an interesting direction is from the point of view of a physicist, a traditional physicist. It's the only constant of physics that's discrete. I think that's correct. Yeah. I don't say the other ones may have measurements of precision, and I don't want to confuse precision and a physical discrete nature.
Yeah, you're right.
It's an interesting constant to describe a discrete universe.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's just because it's the only constant. But you know why that is because well, it's not a constant in physics, and it is only used in chemistry. Physicists don't care at all about the Avogadro number. So that's why it took some time to realize, but you already figured it out, that it was a ratio, a holographic ratio. But for the chemistry, from the chemistry domain. Yeah. But now, because we have the holographic solution, we will understand why the Avogadro number is what it is, and what it really is, because that's the thing. It's but in physics, they don't understand. They don't almost. It's like, though, that's chemistry, and there's like these degrees of. If you're a mathematician, then you're much better than a physicist. If you're a physicist, then you're much better than a chemist. And if you're a chemist, then you're much better than a biologist. There's this kind of what do you say, that discrimination going on. So So fortunately, with the unified field model, we will get rid of that discrimination as well, and we will see that all of that was just the same thing in a different.
Because we're all everything.
Yeah. So but I'm telling you that because Avogadro number. I'm a chemist at the base. I mean, I did my major in chemistry, and then I did my PhD in physics, and so it's a different. The different approach is. If I had been a physicist from the start, I wouldn't have understood the holographic ratio as easily as I did, because I was like a chemist at the base. So that's why for chemists and biologists, it's just easier to understand the holographic solution and the unified model than if you come from physics alone.
I'm with you completely. It was only because about a year ago, I was talking to a chemist, and I'm aware of the mole and Avogadro's number from high school chemistry, and sort of, I don't have an internal thing about the mole. I know what it means, but I don't have that picture. But it turned out to be very useful in thinking about this stuff, and surprisingly useful and trivially simple. I had a hard time believing it at first because it's like too simple.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Right on. That's the thing. Is the simple solution is going to be the correct one, and boy, is it simple. So it's tight. When you have a simple solution that explains super disparate phenomenon at very disparate scales, super tight.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So good work, Nassim Haramein and team, and thank you, Bob, for that excellent question. Or series of questions. Awesome. Where are you, Bob?
Napopo, Big Island.
Nice.
Just above Calico Bay.
Right on. Well, from all of us at Taurus Tech, William, do you want to say anything closing? Because we're about to wrap it here, I think.
Aloha, Bob, and thank you for the question.
Thanks, William.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us for another Q&A session, and bringing such great, insightful questions, such insightful discussions that came from your excellent questions. I love it every time. Looking forward to the next session. And everyone, take care in these kind of turbulent times we're in. And I'll look forward to seeing you all on the next Q&A.
Inez?
Yeah. Well, as always, I'm so happy to be here. I always learn so much. It's like amazing. I'm really in love with these sessions. And so thank you everyone for being here, for supporting us, and please go read the Module 7. You'll see it is awesome, something very, very important to do, because the coming Module 8, it's like, wow. So it's like being at the top of the Everest now. So if you want to be at the top of the Everest, you have to go and read Module 7 first, so that you can see the whole picture of it. So I'm very honored, and so thank you all. And
Yeah, good work.
Yeah.
Good work on that Module 7, Inez. It's epic. It was a lot of information to collate into a single module. You did a good job. Everybody can go check it out at resonancescience.org. It's a free unified science course. We also have a contributing membership program, which enables you to ask questions here on the Q&A and the live with Nassim sessions that happen on the first Wednesday of every month. And on the second and fourth Wednesdays, we have breakout groups where members of our community from all over the world get together on Zoom and just hang out in breakout groups and chat about whatever they want, not on social media, and go deep into these subjects. So come join us. You can also find the community forum that is totally open, available from our website. It's also discussion groups and topics on all these different threads. And there's a new topic on Module 7 that just got added. So you can chat away about the new papers. And we really look forward to Nassim Haramein's new unification paper coming up with Dr. Olivier Allarol, who's collaborating with him, and then Inez and William contributing, and then also kind of trying to describe this to all of us here in layman's terms so that we can help everybody, as many people as possible, to increase their coherency and their personal resonance by understanding where they are and how we got here and how everything works. So I appreciate being part of this. And like Nassim would tell us if he was on here right now, may the vacuum be with you. Much love, everybody. Thank you.